The Civil War started. We all know the military aspects of it, but do you know the role of faith and some incidences that can only be ascribed to God's providence? One of those is Robert E. Lee's Lost Order number 191 and how it changed the Civil War. The Confederate Army was unstoppable. It had the best generals, it had the best trained troops, and it was within weeks of winning the Civil War. On September 13th, 1862, President Lincoln met with some pastors, and these ministers presented Lincoln with a petition urging him to emancipate the slaves. He said, "I'm approached with the most opposite opinions and advice. I hope it will not be irreverent for me to say that if it is probable that God would reveal his will to others on a point so connected with my duty, it might be supposed that he will reveal it directly to me. For unless I am more deceived in myself than I often am, it is my earnest desire to know the will of providence in this matter. These are not, however, the days of miracles, and I suppose it will be granted that I am not to expect a direct revelation." That same day, September 13th, 1862, Union Private Barton W. Mitchell was drinking coffee, and he inadvertently noticed 3 cigars on the ground wrapped in a piece of paper. The paper was a copy of Robert E. Lee's Special Order number 191. It was addressed to Confederate General D.H. Hill, and it revealed he was going to do something dangerous. He was going to divide the Confederate Army. Union General George McClellan was handed this order, and he was now able to intercept them and ambush these separate Confederate brigades, and they were just 70 miles from Washington, D.C. This erupted into what's known as the Battle of Antietam. 75,000 Union troops attacked 38,000 Confederate troops. The Battle of Antietam was the single bloodiest day of the Civil War. Though outnumbered 2-1, the South rallied under the notable generalship of General Stonewall Jackson and inflicted 12,400 casualties on the North. But he sustained 10,316 casualties on the South. And rather than stay and fight the next day, the Confederates decided to retreat and regroup. This battle, which was a significant part in turning the momentum of the war, it stopped the Confederates just 70 miles from Washington, D.C. because of this freak instance of a soldier seeing 3 cigars and a piece of paper wrapped around it. And it happened to be the same day Lincoln was meeting with a number of pastors and praying. On September 22nd, 1862, President Lincoln told his cabinet after the Battle of Antietam, "The time for the enunciation of the emancipation policy can no longer be delayed. Public sentiment will sustain it. Many of my warmest friends and supporters demand it, and I have promised God that I will do it." It was the urging of religious leaders that convinced Lincoln to announce the Emancipation Proclamation. In political parlance, this action allowed the North to seize what's called the moral high ground. The attitude before the Emancipation Proclamation was that the South was really doing the right thing, that they didn't want this overpowering federal government to come in and tell them what to do. And so a lot of the countries internationally, England, France, and so forth, sort of felt sympathy for the South. But when the Emancipation Proclamation was issued and it was printed and went national, international, then these other countries stepped back and they said, wait a second, we don't want to be seen as supporting slavery. It was a brilliant strategic move, even though the emancipation itself did not legally free the slaves. It did not happen until the 13th Amendment was passed. 3 weeks after the Battle of Antietam, President Abraham Lincoln met October 6, 1862, with Eliza Gurney and 3 other Quakers. The Quakers were the first Christian denomination in the world to be officially against slavery. Lincoln said, "We are indeed going through a great trial, a fiery trial. In the very responsible position in which I happen to be placed, being a humble instrument in the hands of our Heavenly Father, as I am, and as we are all, to work out His great purposes, I have desired that all my works and acts may be according to his will, and that it might be so, I have sought his aid. But if, after endeavoring to do my best in the light which he affords me, I find my efforts fail, I must believe that for some purpose unknown to me, he wills it otherwise. If I had my way, this war would never have commenced. If I had been allowed my way, this war would have ended before this. But we find it still continues, and we must believe that he permits it for some wise purpose of his own, mysterious and unknown to us. And through, with our limited understanding, we may not be able to comprehend it, yet we cannot but believe that he who made the world still governs it.